I support Donald Trump
Okay. And what's your
strongly
birth
and
year?
proudly. 2005,
And what month?
January.
And you said you're 20 again,
I'm
right?
20. Yes.
Okay. And if you could go back in time, you could either vote for Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. Who would you rather vote for?
So I actually did vote for Donald Trump in this past election, and I
All right.
would again. I would vote for
Okay.
Donald Trump every time over.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why.
For sure. I have a few people to thank first, and then we can move on to our conversation. Chris and Jackie, thank you so much for the $5. I really appreciate it on Venmo. Thank you. Kelsey, thank you so much for the $20. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Kelsey. Thank you so much for the kind words. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Put some W's for Kelsey in the comment section as well. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I definitely will make sure to do that. I definitely will make sure to do that. Trinity as well. Thank you for the $25. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you. They said go rest after 1 hour. I probably will if I need to for sure. Which I'm feeling like I probably might. Kara, thank you so much for the $12 on PayPal as well. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Kara. Thank you. Get some W's for Kara in the comment section right now. Thank you. All right. So why do you support Trump?
Okay, so first off, I'd like to say I'm sorry that you're sick. I hate to hear that. But I support Donald Trump because, well, one, let me start out with this. The first time he was elected, I was got my license, at 16 years old, and gas prices. I was filling my car up for $30. Now I'm filling my car up for $50, and that the prices are going down under Trump, but he made the country economically far better than it was before him and during the Biden Kamala administration. And also, I would like to say the borders. I would like to bring up the borders and about mass deportation. I support that fully because if you're not from this country and you're not a citizen, then you shouldn't be here. There's legal ways, correct ways to be here, and you can't just hop in a different country because if you were able to do that, that just creates chaos and you have no control over your country.
Okay. So in terms of gas prices actually have gone up since Trump got in office, according to the Energy Information Administration. And if you look at prices across the entire economy, we've seen actually an uptick in prices at a higher rate than what we saw under the Biden administration at the very end. And it's trending up because of Donald Trump implementing tariffs, which put upward pressure on prices, alongside the fact that we've seen decreasing jobs numbers, increasing unemployment, lower real GDP growth, and overall worse off conditions for the economy since Trump has got into office. Alongside the fact that the borders, I would say, weren't caused by the Biden-Harris administration. I think that's due to economic insecurity that existed around the world because of global inflation, which, due to economic insecurity, people fled to the United States, right? And I think that's the basis for why there were more people going into the United States. At the end of the Biden-Harris administration, we saw a similar level of daily crossings comparative to the end of Trump's first term. We actually saw less.
Okay. Well, let me bring this point up then. I see what you're saying because so me personally, I'm from Memphis, right? And I have 2 points to make here. Gas prices here specifically, um, or I see them going down quite frequently. Um, the beginning of last year, they were three-ish dollar. It was $3 a gallon. Now I can go and get gas for $2.30. You know what I mean? And they're steady going down around this area. And also, I would like to bring up the point of since, like I said, I am from Memphis and the National Guard being here, I fully support that too. It makes me feel way safer here in the city because before it was just absolute chaos and terror. But since the National Guard has been here, they have done nothing but help and made me feel safe. How do you feel about that?
So a few things there. I think that if Trump wanted to address crime in the country, he would have sent the National Guard there first, comparative to sending it to areas around the world in which, or not around the world, around the United States that are in democratically controlled states, where there would have been a constitutional issue with doing so. So essentially, like he should have been doing this from the very beginning. And secondly,
So you
I
think it's a
also
good
have
thing?
they have a limitation in terms of being able to arrest people, and how they can actually enforce the law. They're kind of just like a presence there, alongside the fact that we really wouldn't see a benefit from them in the long run unless you keep them there. Otherwise, they wouldn't have a reduction on crime, because you're saying that the implementation of them going there reduces crime. So if they're not there anymore, that crime would just come back, as that enforcement mechanism isn't there anymore. So essentially, you either have to keep them there for the rest of time, or it's inevitably going to go back to the position it was prior.
Okay. Then to add on to that point, I would like to add on to this point and I can continue this. But so SNAP benefits as well here in Memphis. They I believe that they significantly benefit the citizens around this area. And with that being said, why didn't Biden send the National Guard if it should have been done before? You know what I mean? He didn't do anything like that. And I didn't feel safe here under the Biden administration, not even a little bit. But now that Trump's actually taken action, regardless of how and when it was done, it is way safer than whenever Biden was in office for me here. Because I used to feel afraid genuinely walking around the streets to go get gas sometimes at certain times during the day. But now I feel fine to go do whatever. And Biden didn't do anything about that.
Well, I don't think that Biden specifically would be the one to deal with it. If you're talking about the National Guard going there again, this isn't something that you can't keep for forever. So either you're going to advocate for a National Guard police state, or you're going to have to acknowledge that this is just going to be temporary.
See, but Trump is the one who like directly had to do with the National Guard coming here. So why wouldn't Biden have been the one to directly take care of that?
Because it's just a temporary thing. This isn't a
Okay.
long-term thing.
Yes, but would you agree that a temporary fix is better than no fix at all?
And under 2024, the murder rate continued to decrease, reaching a 6-year low. This is in Memphis.
Correct.
So
But
why didn't Trump do it under his first term?
I'm not Trump. But what I will say is that he did it now. And so, but like I said, do you not think that a temporary
Wait, no,
fix
so
is
then,
better than no fix at all?
if he didn't do it under
Because
his first term,
Biden
and yet
did
he
nothing.
could
You know
have,
what I mean?
then if he didn't do it under his first term and he could have, he did nothing under his first term, right?
For that, in this specific case, no.
Okay. So then, like, wouldn't you view him the same as Biden in that context?
Well, here's the difference, though, because Trump did do it the second time. You know what I mean? And so, with that being said, he thought about it because the first time it was his first time being president. There's a lot of things going on. He's here. He's making changes now, and Biden didn't even have a thought about that.
Well,
I don't
apparently
know. I
Trump
hadn't
didn't
had
have
a
a
thought at
thought
all.
about
I'm
that
going
in
to
his
be
first
real.
term either. So if Trump needed 5 years to do it, well, then maybe Biden needed 5 years as well.
If Biden even has 5 more years, but
That wasn't
with
even
that
the
being
claim that we're
said,
making. And also, I could say the same thing about Trump. I mean, Trump brought looking into using disinfectant by injection to fight COVID-19. He said that windmills were causing whales to die in numbers never seen before. He said that if Jesus were the vote counter in California, that he would have won the vote in California. He said that we should look into using nuclear weapons to fight hurricanes. Right? This guy is actively incoherent. He's insane. It's ludicrous that you think that like he's in like a good
so
cognitive
okay, I have a question. Do
level.
you not think Biden was insane or at a cognitive level?
I actually genuinely think that Joe Biden it would be better to be president comparative to Donald Trump cognitively.
Okay, so then let me ask you this.
Like I think that Donald
Why?
Trump is insane and delusional, and that Joe
So,
Biden didn't like actually believe things that were insane and delusional. He
okay,
like might have
but
mistakenly
would you
done
not
things.
rather have your president being attentive and present for all meetings and
Well, I
debates and
don't think that
events in the
Trump is
world versus
actually
Biden
present.
being
I don't think
asleep?
he's present because I think that he's one, not as smart, and two, I also think that he's like insane, and like his presence is bad. So actively, I think that Trump is worse from a cognitive standpoint than Trump, or than Biden.
Well,
And I
so
actually
you don't think
genuinely
Trump is
believe that
smart
now.
at all?
What's up?
You don't think Trump is smart at all?
No.
Well, then how is he a multi-billionaire? You got to be kind of smart to be able to generate that much revenue. Wouldn't you
Because
agree?
he inherited millions of dollars from his dad, like
Millions.
over $400 million, accounting for inflation.
But okay.
And he's
Okay, let's
he's
call that
he's a
number,
con
400
man.
million.
He's a good con man, but I don't think that makes him smart.
You have to be smart to be a good con man if your claim, right? I'm not saying he is.
I don't think that's necessarily true.
Okay, let's take that number though. 400 million. Do you think you could take $400 million and turn it into billions in the time he did? Yes or no?
I mean, I don't know if I could do the same thing from a business perspective, but that doesn't make him necessarily smarter than me. But yeah, I think that putting it into the S&P 500 would have done better. So if you give me $400 million, I'll probably have billions. I mean, I don't know if I'd become president and then double my net worth because I have, Truth
And
Social
see
and
that
dropping
is
a meme
another
coin. So like,
point.
I don't know. Like, I'm not
If you
willing to
can
do like
generate billions of
immoral
dollars
shit
and
like
become
that.
president, you got to be some sort of smart. Would you not agree?
No, I mean him being a
So you
con
don't
man
have to be
is
smart
not.
to be president.
No, and Trump has proved it.
So you're calling America as a whole stupid.
I'm saying there's a lot of stupid people that voted for Donald Trump. Yeah.
No. You're calling because he's our leader. Regardless whether you like him or not, he is your president. We haven't impeached him. So why
He
is that
should
the
be
case?
impeached, and he has been impeached in the past.
But why hasn't he been impeached yet this time?
Because we need to get Republicans in Congress to change their mind. I mean, he should be
Well,
impeached.
okay.
He's actively talked about executing Democrats for literally just saying abide by the Constitution and don't follow unlawful orders.
He said those things.
Yeah, look at his Twitter. He literally
Can you?
retweeted someone saying HANG them. George Washington would have.
So you let me get this right. He let me get this right. So because of a tweet that, let's be real, he's a busy man. You could agree that. I think we could both agree. I'm sure he's constantly busy being president, owning companies and businesses, right? You think he genuinely runs his Twitter account?
Yeah, I think he was on his toilet posting that and retweeting it. And if he wasn't, and it was a mistake, then it would have been taken down already. And if it were someone else, they probably wouldn't have done that.
Do you think he was in the blue Oval Office bathroom?
I don't know what bathroom he was in, but he was on the toilet probably doing that.
Do you think he was using single ply?
What?
Toilet paper.
Why are you asking me this?
Okay, look, listen. Let's get down to the main point I wanted to bring up. Okay, the SNAP benefits. I want to dive into these because I have. Is it all
Why
right
are we
if
pivoting from what we were just talking about? Because if you
because
want to
I think you're running in
small
a
portion
circle.
of the governmental
No,
budget.
because I think you're running in a circle saying a multi-billionaire that became president of our country is stupid, and that just doesn't make sense to me.
I gave you examples.
Well,
Want me to keep
you
going?
said he made a tweet.
That wasn't it. I also said that he said that windmills were causing whales to die in numbers never seen before. He said that we should look into using disinfectant by injection to fight COVID-19. He said that we should look into using nuclear weapons to fight hurricanes. He said that climate change is a hoax with no evidence that the climate's going to start cooling and science just doesn't know it yet. He said that if Jesus were the vote counter in California, that he would have won the vote.
But that makes him stupid.
Yes.
So do you don't think that if Jesus counted the votes, he might not win?
In California? No, he wouldn't win.
Correct. So then why can't we change California's mind? If you want to change Republicans' mind, why can't we change California's mind?
Because there's not enough idiots in California.
I think there's significantly more idiots in California and New
I don't
York
think so.
than the rest of the country.
Apparently not.
Yeah. If that's the case, then why is Trump president?
Because there's a lot of idiots that voted for him.
So you voted for Biden, correct?
And for Kamala Harris.
Well, it was Biden.
No, in 2020 it was Biden. In 2024 it was Kamala Harris.
Okay. Hold on? Can my buddy debate? He wants to debate you about something. He's here with me. Is that all right?
Yeah. If you need help, it's okay.
Hey, Parker.
What's up?
What's up, man? This is Joseph. I'm 20. How old am I? 23. 23. Don't put
And
another
do you
year
support
on me.
Trump?
I do support Donald Trump.
Okay. And why do you support Trump?
Okay, honestly, this presidency has been a shit show, to be honest with you, Parker. However, I do not take back, I do not recount my vote because Kamala Harris was way too silent during her candidacy. She did not hold press conferences. I didn't like. I'm from Tennessee. I'm from MAGA country, whatever, yada yada yada, blah blah blah. Call it what you want. At the end of the day, she didn't do enough campaigning, whatever you want to call it, to be able to win over my vote. Does that make sense?
Well, she had 107 days, so I mean, I don't know what campaigning she would have to do under your view to win your vote over a guy
Well,
held
it
civilly
was just
liable of
as
sexually
far as
abusing
a
a woman that bragged about
publicity
walking in
thing.
the
I
changing
never
rooms.
heard anything about her in the
Well,
news
then
in
you
the
didn't do
media.
research. You didn't do
Well,
research. You
you're
didn't
you're
look at the
right about
media.
that. You're right about that. But let me ask you this, Parker.
That's a
Do
you
you
problem then.
think that 90 I agree, but do you think that 95% of Americans do their research before they vote, or do you think that they just vote preemptively based upon, oh, I live in a blue state so I'm blue, or I live in a red state so I'm red? Like,
I
let's be
think
honest,
more than that,
Republicans, 99% of Republicans don't do research. Could you agree with that?
I can't believe you're making that argument.
No, I'm not making an argument. I'm being a
By the
realist.
way, I just want to let you know, I don't even know if it would be 99%, but I would say a huge portion of Republicans, yeah,
Yeah, they don't do their research. Because
they
I'll
didn't
be
do their
honest with you.
research, yeah.
Look, I have been
People who voted
listening
for
to
Donald Trump.
I've been listening to you and Dean for about a month now, 2 months. Whenever Charlie Kirk passed away, I started listening to y'all. And I've changed my mind on a lot of viewpoints because of y'all. Um, However, in that same breath, still, I just don't know because I didn't do my research back then. I don't know what Kamala Harris was running on. I don't know, I don't know what she was about.
Well, here's the issue then. You should do that research, and I'm trying to get people to do that research. That's why I'm doing these live streams. Is because I want
Yes, and I
people
agree with
to have a
that.
different culture around voting and around these different types of issues because I need people to critically think in order for them to make an accurate determination on who they should have voted for. Because based upon some of the biggest reasons why people voted for Donald Trump, things like inflation, right, are reasons actually you shouldn't vote for Trump and you should actually vote against him because Kamala Harris was advocating against the universalized tariffs that Donald Trump's advocating for, and Donald Trump was going to and did pass them, and it's caused an upward pressure on prices that wouldn't have existed otherwise. We'd have a better context for the market right now for the average American if Kamala Harris were in office. She wanted to keep all the tax cuts for income earners under $400,000 a year and only wanted to increase taxes on income over $400,000 a year. She wasn't coming after your paycheck. She was coming after, right, the richest Americans in terms of them paying their fair share, right? That was what she was looking for. So that's kind of like what I would address, and I would say that's important, is that when we tax rich Americans over $400,000 a year, that doesn't take away from their ability to take care of the things that they need in their life. But when you inevitably tax working class Americans, low income individuals, because everyone pays a tariff and increase consumer prices, that does harm people who did need that money, and that does affect people's quality of life.
Right, and I get what you're saying. Okay, let's talk about SNAP benefits, Parker, because this is one of the big problems that I have too. Because a lot of what I see, again, I'm in and have been around a lot of the a lot of the poorer parts of Tennessee. And what I've seen a lot of is people who are having all these kids and they get all these food stamps, and then they'll go around and sell the food stamps, to their friends, to their family, whatever, and cash, put money in their pocket. So my problem with that is that they obviously don't need, $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 a month of food stamps if they're going around and selling them for, selling $1,400 worth of food stamps for 500 bucks, whatever. You can't convince me that these people that are out here driving Camaros need food stamps. You know what I'm saying? In order to survive. Does that make sense?
People do need food stamps to survive, and you're talking about maybe one or two people that have access to food stamps that don't deserve it. Maybe that exists, right? Or a few people. It's not a huge portion of people. Um,
I
And
think it's bigger than you
I don't
think,
think that you could say
Foster.
there's one person that doesn't deserve it. There's a few people that don't deserve it. That means you want to kick off so many people that do deserve it.
No, I agree with that. I think that there's a better way to regulate
Okay.
and kind
Well,
of
I want
adhere
to
and
I want
filter
to keep
through.
going. I want to keep going.
Okay, go ahead.
People aren't just getting like $1,400 a month, right? That is not how much people are getting for food stamps. They are getting hundreds of dollars a month to supplement their access to food. Can some people in these circumstances get that and they specifically try to sell it for other things? Yes, that can happen. But again, that doesn't mean that in most circumstances people are getting this wildly absurd amount of money from the government, not working and just getting that because there is a
Sure.
work
Okay. Can
requirement
I
on food
ask
stamps.
you, and you could probably educate me on this a little bit. Can I ask you? It varies based on household's size, right? Like the
Yes, it
amount of
does.
money that you get varies.
How many kids
Do
you
you know
have?
those conversions off the top of your head or no?
I don't know.
Okay, because the one literally one specific case that I'm talking about, this lady has like 8 kids. She gets like $1,600 a month, and she's going around selling them like it's a magazine or something, man.
Okay, so so like it's just an anecdote that you're providing in this circumstance, and you're saying because of an anecdote, that one circumstance, that means that you want to cut millions of people off their access to food stamps. This is
No,
2.5
and I
million
wouldn't
people
say
off their access to
that.
food stamps on an average every single month, and it's over 420,000 children on from their access to free school lunch and breakfast on average every month.
Yes, and I
So you're
don't
harming
agree. Here's
children
what I
too
don't
when you
agree.
reduce.
Right.
Hold on, listen. You're harming children when you reduce access to SNAP and through the big beautiful bill.
Right, and I get it, and I don't want you to think that I fully agree or agree much at all with Donald Trump doing what he's doing, or as far as the way that he's going about it. But I do think that there's a way to where everybody can win. Those who need them can get them, and those who don't need them, those are the people that I care about getting off of them. You know what I'm saying? And I think that you would agree with that. You're against Trump. You called him a con man. You say this, you say that. Like, I think that you would agree that those people who are taking advantage of the system deserve to be kicked off of it.
Yeah, I just don't think it's a high proportion of people specifically that are on it. I think
I
there's
wouldn't say
probably
it's a
maybe a
high
few
portion
people
of
that you
people,
could
but
point to that like.
it's a
Wait, hold up,
big enough
listen.
portion I think that
Listen,
matters.
listen. I think there's probably a few people that you could probably point to where they don't need it, but in general, I think people do need it. Also, this is a very small portion of the budget. Okay, very very small portion of the budget. I don't know why you're pointing to this, acting like this is the biggest issue, and not looking at the corporate subsidies, not looking at the massive investments into our military, not looking at how much money we put into all of these other things, right? Fossil fuel companies, etc., that are not helping you. The massive tax
Right.
breaks for millionaires and billionaires. Right, you understand
Yeah,
that
and I'm
doesn't
not
help
I'm not
you, and all of
necessarily
that money,
saying.
no one's looking at it and being like, oh, they don't need this money. Well, you could say that about billionaires. Billionaires don't need the money, and yet you're sending it to them, right? You know who does need the money? People getting access to food that are not going to be able to get access to food because of your limitations on the food stamps.
Yes, and I think that you're doing the same thing that I'm doing, is picking a very small percentage of people, right? Like you're talking about, oh, billionaires don't need the money. Yeah, no, yeah, billionaires don't need more money and don't need tax cuts and yada 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 blah blah blah. But that's a very small percentage of the world. I would beg to argue. I would argue the fact that I would argue the fact that there's a larger percentage of people taking advantage of the system than there is billionaires in this world.
Hey, can I hop in here real quick? So I've thought about this a little bit. I don't really think that using an example of individuals selling food stamps is too good to demonstrate like fraud that would justify taking food stamps away. Because think about it this way. Point number one, when somebody's selling their food stamps, what that demonstrates is not that they don't need the food stamps. It's that they need money to pay for something that is more important to them
Well, then why
right
don't
now
they go
than
get a
food.
job, Dean?
Can you just allow me to finish speaking?
Go ahead.
Right. Plus, there's work requirements on federal food stamps. So likely, unless they're a child, elderly, or disabled, they do have a job. But to get back to what I was saying, think about it this way. Right? It's not because they don't need the food assistance. It's because they need something more than they need the food assistance right now, like rent assistance, right? Like to pay down medical bills, right? For something like that. I mean, consider, right, a hypothetical where you were in that position where you were low income and the government helped subsidize your food. And then you turned around and you sold your food stamps for a value lower than the food stamps. Obviously, that's because you have found yourself in a scenario where there's something that costs money that is more important to you than dinner. Maybe that speaks towards larger issues, right, with Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, Section 8, larger issues with people not being paid living wages, and larger issues with the exploitation of the working class, right? And then on the other end of that, the person that is buying the food stamps, I mean, you also have to be in a pretty bad financial situation to be willing to buy someone else's food stamps to help get a dinner for you, get dinner for your children, right? Which speaks towards another issue of maybe the eligibility for these social safety nets are a little bit tighter than they should be. And if there was to be a solution to this at all, what I would see it as is ensuring that individuals are paid fair wages, ensuring that all social safety nets are up to par, while simultaneously, maybe as priority 1001, finding a way to restrict food stamps to the recipient and to prevent the transaction of selling them after we've done all these other things. But the obvious solution isn't to have some tyrannical orange idiot slam his fist down and refuse to fund these things for 12 days for 16 million American children and 42 million American individuals as a whole.
Okay, yeah, I hear what you're saying. So let me kind of paint this picture for you, Dean. And what you just described, you said, they have to sell their food stamps to get rent because they need rent assistance. But doesn't the government provide that as well? There's Section 8 housing, there's food stamps, and then you said to pay off medical bills. That's where Medicare, Medicaid come in, like Obamacare. That's where those things come in. Like people have these low income individuals that you're talking about. They benefit by not having a job. The middle class people benefit less from the government than the low income people do, and I don't think that that's right. You know what I'm saying?
Well, point number one, right, if you listen to my response at all, I went over how maybe we need to make our social safety nets better because in many scenarios, they could be limited and restrictive.
Sure.
And second of all, right, I would be hard pressed, right? I would truly, right, be bamboozled if you could find, right, any evidence for a nationwide epidemic of like low income people that can work but willingly choose not to, that instead choose a life of selling food stamps to get some money this day to help put towards their rent or medical bills, while then retaining some other food stamps to ensure that they could eat this day but not the day after that, right? So on and so forth. Like humans are empirically rational. We want to flourish, we want to be happy, and I understand that some people have traits of laziness, but I just don't think enough people are truly lazy enough, right, in the sense of wanting to work a job to rather opt for this incredibly hard life that I just described in order for it to be some like nationwide epidemic calling for the immediate expulsion of these social safety nets that in all reality only generate better economic outcomes for the country as a whole, because every dollar that we spend on food stamps generates $1.80 of economic activity while also ensuring a launch pad that helps low-income Americans become higher-income earners. The reduction of social safety nets, the people that are on them, and their impact on society from the right to this picture of nothing but laziness and joblessness and the lack of disability, addiction, or life problems that are more complicated than just getting rid of the social safety net as a whole is harmful propaganda that continues to get you to vote for their side even though they're truly doing nothing to fix it. And maybe we could wrap this back into a point that your friend had made earlier of how he thinks that the people in blue states are more idiotic than the people in red states. Well, in blue states, people do have a higher IQ and a higher level of education on average, so I don't know if that's too true.
Sure. Okay. So Let's see. I had something on the tip of my tongue I was going to say, but I forgot it. Um, what I have trouble with, Dean, is like in generally what is blues America. It seems as though low income, some lazy, some disabled. Oh, that's the point I was getting to. Okay, you mentioned addiction. I'm sorry. You mentioned addiction. You mentioned joblessness, yada 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 blah blah blah. How many do you think of those people made their bed for lack of better words? How many people do you think made horrible, shitty decisions on throughout their life to eventually lead them to a place of addiction, to eventually lead them to a place of joblessness, to eventually lead them to a place of homelessness? Like why do my tax dollars now have to go to you when you made your bed and now you have to lay in it? Instead of me letting you lay in it, now I'm gonna throw out the safety net and let you mooch off of America.
Well, I mean, I feel like the question that you just asked me assumed a bunch of premises in which are false, right? Such as the fact that federal food stamps have a work requirement on them as is, or that food stamps actually help promote better economic outcomes. But even like assuming like a small percentage of individuals that are like unemployed, jobless, homeless, they made their own bed, it's because of them and their own decisions, so on and so forth, right? In that situation, I still say it's a good thing for the government to extend a helping hand, because when the government does, it helps in getting more Americans out of homelessness. It helps in getting more Americans out of like unoptimal like conditions and poverty. And it helps gets more Americans into the working class, which inevitably generates better economic outcomes for the country as a whole, and by product benefiting you in the process.
Okay, so let me ask you
Having the
this then. Do you
taxpayer
know?
send some of that one moment, having the taxpayer pay some of their money into these social safety nets compared to bombs to drop on kids in Gaza, or $240 million to possibly be put in the president's own personal bank account, or $4.5 trillion just to do the greatest redistribution of wealth from the poor to the rich in modern American history, giving like maybe $100 per year into these social safety nets is something that will truly benefit humans just like you, regardless if they made their own beds or not. It'll truly benefit their children, and it'll truly benefit the country as a whole, in turn making better economic conditions for you yourself to flourish.
Sure. Okay, let me ask you this. Do you know the statistics on what percentage of people, how long does the average person that receives government assistance, how long do they stay on that government assistance? Because
Yeah, I
right,
got you.
obviously
I actually
everybody
do.
that's low
I actually
income
do.
wants to turn into a working class,
I
and I
actually
want
do.
that for them. But what is the timeline on that?
I actually do know this.
When would be the
So,
cutoff? You know what I mean?
so for food stamps, 30% of people are off of them in the first 3 months. 40% of people are off of them in the first six, and over 56% of people are off of them in the first year.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty cool, Dean.
It
I
is.
didn't.
It does.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that, Dean. I didn't know that.
That really does demonstrate, right, that individuals use food stamps as a social safety net.
Because, and I'll just tell you, and I'm sure you know this, because in MAGA country over here, the perception is that these people are getting on food stamps, staying on them for God knows how long, and just living off of the government solely for the rest of the. I didn't know that within a year, 56% of people that have gone on food stamps are now off of food stamps. That's incredible.
It is. And another fact is that people on food stamps are at like an increased likelihood to be on the food stamps at multiple points throughout their life, while still holding on to that propensity and being on it in individual scenarios for less than a year, which just further demonstrates the point that these, on average, are benefits that are used when experiencing impoverished conditions that then help the individual experience said conditions, grow their own income, and join the working class.
Right, and that's what I don't want, Dean. And I think I can speak for most Republicans when I say this, is that what we don't want is for people to fall on hard times and then just to remain there and to victimize themselves and just to live off of the government for the rest of their lives. You know what I mean? And that's what I think their perception is right now, is that everybody who's on food stamps are just there.
I would say one, that's just incorrect, and then two, you look at your priorities in terms of the government. Why are you prioritizing such a small portion of the overall federal dollars? that you're paying in
So where
taxes.
does the majority of federal taxpayers, where does that money go?
Yeah, like it's going to go to things like Social Security, Medicare, things like Medicaid, and then alongside like defense spending. Defense spending's over $900 billion a year. There's massive,
God.
yeah, like it's ridiculous. Like we could literally take from the military budget, and we'd still have the largest in the world. We could cut it in half and still have the largest in the world, by over $100 billion a year.
That's incredible. Okay. So all right, let's kind of y'all. I concede that point. Let's kind of go over to the other big hitter for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to drop down now. I just wanted to come up and talk about food stamps. You take care, Parker.
Thanks for coming up, Dean.
Of course, man. Thank you.
All right, Parker. Just last thing, and then I think my roommate wants to take back over. If that's okay with you. Excuse me. Let's talk about immigration.
Okay, go for it.
So, what I don't like, I'll say I'm kind of in the middle on this one. I don't like the fact that people have and under anybody but Trump, it seems, are actively just walking across the border illegally. I don't like that. I also don't agree with the mass deportation so much. I don't agree with the way that ICE is, coming in and really dehumanizing people for a lack of better words. And then how the White House on their social media, I don't know if you've seen some of those posts, is like boasting about it and making like these edits about it and stuff. I don't know. That's just sick to me. But anyway, I think, and maybe you'll see it the same way or you'll see it differently. I think that the best course of action from here is to, if I were president, Parker, this is what I would do. Deport all the people who have done violent crimes. Let them go back home. Or put them in prison and then send them back, as long as they're going to stay in prison over there. And then what I would do is grant anybody who is here and does not have a violent crime, give them a pathway to citizenship, and then make the pathway to citizenship easier. That's why people feel as though they have to come over illegally, is because the
Have you
pathway
watched
to
my
citizenship.
stream before at all?
I have been watching you for a month straight, Parker.
It sounds like you have my exact position.
Okay, good. What effect does mass deportation or mass immigration, what does it have on the economy as a whole?
I would say that it's negatively impacting our economy as a whole. Not only is it negatively impactful to our economy, it's negatively impactful
You're talking about
on
deportation?
a moral standpoint, and it's a violation of constitutionally protected rights as due process, as Donald Trump has expanded expedited removal to apply to those that have been within the country for less than 2 years and
Okay.
anywhere within the jurisdiction of the country, whereas prior it was within 100 miles from a border and within the last 2 weeks. So
Parker, this is also something that I've had a question about. I've wanted to ask this 100 times over. So when we say constitutional rights, how do constitutional rights apply to illegal immigrants? Like, how do they have the constitutional right of due process if they came over illegally? They're not a U.S. citizen. So how do they have constitutional rights?
Because according to the 14th Amendment, anyone within the jurisdiction of the country gets due process. Means if you commit a crime,
Wow.
you get to go through the courts.
Okay, now what do you think about? I know they changed the whole. Come over here when you're 9 months pregnant, have a baby, and now you're a U.S. citizen, whatever. Like, how do you feel about the I don't know, the danger or the upside of amending the Constitution to make it fit better, nowadays things? I think that the Founding Fathers, when they wrote the Constitution, I don't think that they had today's America in mind, to be honest with you. So what does that process look like? And at what point do you say, okay, this needs to be amended?
I don't think we would amend it in a manner in which, would be favorable to Trump. I mean, the position we have is different from Trump's. So I guess, how do you look at Trump's perspective and say that is better based upon the position that you have?
So I would just say, I'm specifically talking about birthright citizenship right now. Is that still a thing?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So I don't agree with like, and I know that this is a super rare case. This is, one in a billion, but I don't agree with the fact that somebody can come on the plane 9 months pregnant, come over to the United States, have their baby, and now their child is a U.S. citizen because
Well,
now
I just want to
you
let you know this is ingrained in interpretation from the Supreme Court. They've already had a case on this. That's
and
what.
that's why I asked why it was still why
So,
if it was still active.
so you're not going to be able to change that. That's ingrained into the law.
And
That's supreme
I don't
law
know.
then.
That's one of those things, Parker, that I just don't agree with because what you're doing is you're ripping
You can
either
say you don't
your
agree with it, but
environment.
what's your mechanism of getting rid of it?
That's a grant the parent citizenship.
Okay, so that sounds okay to me.
Yeah, yeah.
That
But
sounds
my
like
problem with it
you're
is
okay with
not that we
birthright
have.
citizenship then.
Yes, my problem is not that we have a new American citizen. My problem is that now the parents have to fight like hell to get citizenship.
I don't think people should have to. I think it should be a quick legal process, which is something that Republicans disagree with. They're the ones that
Right.
want to make it harder for people to get into the country.
No,
And
and
Democrats have
I agree
advocated
with
for
you
the
like that.
process to go significantly quicker. It sounds like your
Yeah.
view is democratic in nature, like in terms of immigration. So,
All
for
right,
you
Parker,
at
don't
least,
use the D word when you're talking about me. I'm from Tennessee.
but like in terms of immigration, I'm saying, and I mean, what other perspective would you say you support Trump on? Because it seems like if you talk about immigration, you're going to lean towards Democrats.
I think the very last thing, because like I said, I've been listening to you and Dean for a long time. I say a long time, about 2 months now. I listen to y'all every time y'all are live. I listen. Most of the time I'm driving, so I can't come up. But the last thing that I would necessarily say that like I have seen that Trump does that nobody else has done in the past is make Memphis feel like a safe city. So from what I know, the Supreme Court ruled it unconstitutional or unfit or whatever to deploy the National Guard and to keep the National Guard in certain cities in America, primarily the Democratic cities that they were going to. My problem with that is you can say that it's not too far gone to where we have to have the National Guard there, but no member of the Supreme Court will walk around at 12 o'clock midnight in one of those cities without security. You know what I'm saying? And that's what my big holdup was with the Supreme Court ruling that, if they even did rule that. I may be ill informed in that. But that these people that are saying, oh, Memphis isn't that bad, you don't need the National Guard there. Okay, come walk in Memphis then. Come walk in Memphis in the middle of the night with no gun on your hip and no security with you, and see how
So,
safe you
so
feel.
then here's my question: would you like to perpetually keep the National Guard there?
I wouldn't say so. I think there needs to be, and this, you're going to call me a Democrat again. There needs to be some form of gun regulation. Too many people are getting. Can I say the G word on TikTok Live?
Well, yeah. I mean, we could just say pew pew, but like, I mean, if you
Okay.
believe in pew pew control, then you definitely don't agree with Trump, right? And Republicans.
I agree in the right to bear arms. I don't agree that when I turned 18, I went and bought a pew pew and they did like a piss poor background check, and now I just have an assault rifle. You know what I mean? I don't agree with that.
Yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like, so that you sound like I mean, you said I was gonna say this, but it's true then. I mean, that sounds like you agree with Democratic policy. So then, like, I guess what is the reason why you support Trump? Because again, if we're talking about the National Guard, I was asking you, would you keep them perpetually forever? And
You can't.
you
You
can't.
can't keep that. You can't.
So
I would
inevitably
say
speaking,
yes.
are
I
you
would say
saying that it's
yes,
gonna
but you just
stop?
can't financially. Yeah, it's
So
gonna stop, and then crime's gonna go back up. This is a Band-Aid on a bullet hole, Parker, and it's all it is. I know that. You know that. All of Memphis
so
knows
so
that.
so, so then what are you trying to do to specifically address like whether or not you could reduce it from that standpoint rather than saying that we should just have like a police state?
What I'm saying right now, this is, I can only live in here and now, right? Like I said, I don't do nearly as much research as probably half the people in this live. But what I know from personal experience is, sorry,
You
Parker,
cut out.
I accidentally pressed the camera button. What I know from personal experience is that Memphis feels safer now than it ever has in my 23 years on this earth.
Okay. So, but like again, what do we take from this? You understand that like either you're going to keep them
I
there
guess,
perpetually
I
forever, and
just
also you can't
appreciate.
deploy them everywhere in the country, right? There's
No,
not an
and I
ability to
agree with
deploy the
that. I
National
agree
Guard
with that.
everywhere in the country.
I think that, okay, then let me ask you this. Why is crime so bad in Memphis and it's not so bad everywhere else? Why was
You
Memphis, Tennessee
wait.
listed as one of the
That's something that
world's...
you would have to determine from your perspective anyway. I don't know why you're asking that question. That's
Well,
a
I know,
separate
but
question.
I only brought that up because you said you can't deploy the National Guard in every city, and I agree with that. But every city doesn't need the National Guard deployed.
Okay, so you're saying some do.
Some do, yes.
Okay.
However, but no, I wouldn't say that that's the. Again, it's a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. It's not a long-term fix. How long can America pay to have the National Guard stand around on Beale Street in Memphis and just literally just stand there and look?
Yeah, that's what they're doing because they don't really
Yeah,
have
no.
much of an ability to do much else.
Right. It's just a fear factor. But anyway, ultimately, what I'm saying is that, okay, for in my 23 years, other than a couple, let's say a 75-cent swing one way or the other on gas prices, I've never seen the president of the United States impact my personal day-to-day life. Okay, I've never, I'm 23. I
Do you have,
wasn't.
are you gonna have children?
I am. Yeah.
Okay. So Kamala Harris is advocating to expand the child tax credit for the first year of your child's life, $6,000 child tax credit, right? For the first year of a
Okay.
child's
Whoa,
life,
whoa, whoa. Who's paying
3,600
for that?
through them being 5 years old, 3,000 through them being 18. It's 2,000 currently under the current tax policy right now. Trump's also imposing tariffs on you that are going to impact your consumer products, things that you're going to have to buy for your children, for your family, for the things that you need in your life. Right? Everything's going to be more expensive and has been more expensive because Donald Trump has imposed tariffs. So you understand that it actually does negatively impact you. You're just not able to at least understand why, because it seems like you're not understanding of what her policies were. This is one of her main policies. Also, a $25,000 tax credit for first-time homebuyers for new homes. So if you wanted to buy a new house, right, in a place that you want to live with your family, right, she was wanting to literally provide not only a child tax credit, but also a housing tax credit to help you do that. So you say that, no candidate specifically done things that would help you in your personal life. This would.
Okay. Now, all I can say is what I've already experienced. The only things that I can base inform my opinions is what I can already experience. What do you think? Let me ask you this. What do you think Trump's big goal was in implementing these tariffs?
I think, well, he claims that he wants to bring back domestic manufacturing to this country. That hasn't happened yet.
So do you think that that's a long-term thing? Do you think that we
You
may
know what,
see results
actually,
of that?
you know what I think it is? I think
Like,
it's
I
to
want you to be honest. Don't be biased just
this
because
is
you're
my
Parker.
100% position. I think it's because Donald Trump wants to shift the burden of taxation from those that are higher income to those that are lower income.
So you think he doesn't give a damn about low-income Americans?
I think he's purposefully trying to harm low income Americans, yes. And he's lying
And
about it.
even if it's not intentional, that's what he's doing anyway.
I mean, either way, right?
All right, let me say this, Parker. This is my last point, and then I'm going to give you back to my roommate. I think he wants to talk to you for a second. In front of 4.4 thousand people on TikTok, this is me coming out of the closet. I am a Democrat now.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
I mean it, Parker. Thank you, brother. You've cleared up a lot of stuff. I've been on the edge for a while, man. I really just needed a conversation just to clear up those last few things, bro. But yeah, dude, you've got me convinced, brother.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate you, Parker. Here's my roommate, man. Have a good night, bro. Feel better.
Appreciate you as well. Thank you.
All right, here you go.
Hey, Parker, it's Preston again.
What's
Okay,
it?
so listen, I've been listening in, all your points, all the dean's points, and everything, and I'm gonna be honest. Yeah, you might think I'm trolling. A lot of people in the chat might think I'm trolling. I am not when I say this. All right, y'all make very solid arguments and solid points. A lot of the statistics y'all brought up, the numbers and different specific groups of people in different scenarios, I did not know that as well, right? And so what I will say is, I you have opened my eyes, Parker. I'm not gonna lie, okay? To the real what America's going through today, okay? Because I'm gonna be honest, I only know what's going on around me, right? I go to work, I come home, I play my video games, right? And I voted for Donald Trump, right? Because I knew a little bit about him. I didn't know a dang thing about the blue side, right? But what I will say is, can you give me your top three topics? Whether you could just tell with the top three things if you wanted to, but the top three topics that I should research, because you do have me leaning a little bit too now that I know more facts. You know what I mean, and more of actually what's going on than what I'm getting perceived of by the media.
Yeah. I would say look at AP News, NPR, PBS, Reuters. I would say look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Look at the St. Louis Federal Reserve, the Bureau of Economic Analysis, the Committee for Responsible Federal Budget, um, the Congressional Budget Office. Those are all like the best places for information that you can find for economic data, or if you're looking for like typical like media and central, like in general. And then I would also say like you have to continue to like think about these issues all the time, like and critically and like analyze them, and don't just accept whatever analysis comes from the Trump administration. As I mean, historically they don't have a good track record for telling the truth and for actually doing the right thing. So I mean that's what I would say.
Okay. Then okay. Then can you also answer this? This is my last thing I want to know. Can you give me your personal, Parker's personal top three things you should think that that should persuade and get people to lean to vote Democratic? Can you give me those? Because I those because I give me like no downside on either side. I just want your personal three things that you think that people should vote Democratic without looking down on either side.
Yeah. So I would say that we actually want to address the access to healthcare in this country, in terms of a universal healthcare plan, whether that be a public option or that be a single payer system. That's typically what the Democratic position is on that. We want to expand access to childcare, typically advocate for like universal childcare or expansive access to childcare through some sort of governmentally funded affordable childcare program. Alongside, we would also like to want to like invest in education, and then also fighting climate change. So like investing in renewable energy production in this country, I think is incredibly important. We did so through the Inflation Reduction Act, and I would like to build on top of that because I think that's pretty important.
All right, hey Parker, I appreciate that. I'm going to the next election, and the next election where I vote. I'm not gonna lie, you got me there. I wouldn't say I'm Democratic now, but I would say that I am far pulled towards that way, and because there's a lot of valid points and a lot of good arguments of what you want to do for America in the state it's in. And so I appreciate that, Park. You have opened my eyes, and I thank you for the information, man. And I hope you feel better.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Alrighty. I do have to catch up. I'm just about to like 1 hour. I'll see how long I can last for doing debates. I'm trying my hardest to do the debates right now. I'm trying my hardest, everyone. I'm a bit sick, everyone, if you don't know. Do give me a second, but I do have a lot of people to thank. I just want to get someone up here to debate before I do. Only send a guest request if you do meet that set of criteria listed on the TikTok screen. We are just looking for some debates. Alrighty, do give it a second. I'm like honestly like really. I thought maybe I would get sick last night, and I was like, oh, I'm scared, and then it happened, and I was like, oh. Yo, what's up? How old are you?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, how old are you?
I'm 29.
Do you support Trump?
Yes.
If
Yes.
you could go back in time, you could either vote for Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. Who'd you rather vote for?
Donald Trump for sure.
For sure. All right, I have a few people to thank real quick to give me a minute to catch up with everyone. Um, Here, I'm going to mute you real quick. Just I'll unmute you whenever it's ready because it sounds like there's a little bit of feedback on the microphone. POT, thank you so much for the $6.66. Thank you. Allison with the $3. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Susan, I appreciate the 25. Thank you so much. Good of W's for Susan as well in the comment section. Thank you. Pamela, thank you so much for the $50. I really appreciate it on Venmo. Thank you so much. Holy shit, everyone's going so crazy. I didn't even read all of these. I'm like literally like an hour behind. Thank you so much. Yeah, I will. That's what I'm gonna be doing tonight. I'll just literally be on the couch and laying down. That's what I was doing all day today. I was literally just like laying down all day. So that was relatively nice at least. Alexis, thank you so much for the 5. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And that's like seriously like why we need so many different types of systems from a federal standpoint that Republicans advocate against, because they literally have no plan to address that at all. And that's so sad. I'm sorry to hear that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Jesse, thank you so much. I really appreciate the $50 for Get Well Soon. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Jesse. Thank you. Some W's for Jesse in the comment section right now. Thank you so much, Jesse. I really appreciate it. Brianna, thank you for the $10 for the emergency. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Yes, I will, definitely. That's why I'm definitely doing less today. I typically wouldn't feel okay with doing less than 4 hours. That's just how I am. But Keely, thank you for the $5. Alexis, thank you for the $1. Megan, thank you so much for the 10. Aaron, thank you for the 12. I really appreciate it. Rachel, thank you for the 20. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Christian, thank you so much for the 5. I'm definitely so far behind everyone. If I missed everyone's donation, I really apologize. Catherine, thank you so much. I really appreciate the $20. Thank you so much. Alexis, thank you for the $1. Elena, thank you for the 5. Katie with the 5 as well. Thank you so much. Lincoln with the 5. Thank you so much. Autumn with the 2. And Fletch, thank you for the 10. Amanda, thank you for the 5. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Katie, thank you for the 50. I really appreciate some W's for Katie in the comment section right now as well. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Sarah with the 2 and with the 1. And Amanda, thank you for the 5. I'm so far behind everyone. I really apologize. If I missed everyone's, I'm so sorry, everyone. Today I was a bit behind on that. Coral, thank you for the 50 as well. Thank you so much on YouTube Super Chat. Thank you. Emily, thank you for the 10 as well. Thank you. I appreciate it. I think maybe I'll do one more, and then I'm going to get off for today, everyone. I think I'm going to do one more and get off for today. I think this conversation is going to be my last one. If you're on YouTube, I'd really appreciate if you like the stream, everyone. But yeah, I think I'll probably do one more. All right, so why do you support Trump?
Yeah. No. Well, first off, thank you for having me on, and sorry you're not feeling well. So, but yes, the reason I support Trump. Grew up conservative. I don't vote based off of party lines. I like to vote based off of policies. I like the tariff idea. I think it's been misconstrued, or some people don't necessarily know the economics behind it. So I got a BA in economics, but because of a lot of these countries ripping us off deal-wise and not being able to come to the table and negotiate effectively, I think with the tariffs, it's more about going extreme to then bring them to the table to then have an actual discussion to try to renegotiate some of these trades. But also too with tariffs, the need or desire to want to bring manufacturing obviously back to America. Now what we're seeing a lot of companies do is say, well, because we're getting hit with these tariff prices, now we're going to increase our prices. Typically in economics, the tariff is paid by the company, and that is then going to keep the price somewhat similar for the consumers. But because companies in a corporation state are wanting to, monopolize or capitalize off of this gain and then pass it off politically and say it's because of the tariffs we have to increase our prices versus actually moving manufacturing back. That to me, I'm sorry, my audio is bad. I'm just on my.
You might have to turn off your Bluetooth.
Oh, good call. But yeah, there was a lot of different policies. I think trying to, create a smaller government. You may not agree, or you may you probably disagree with the overturning of Roe v. Wade. I think having less federal, government policies and having more state-based policies is more beneficial, just because there are so many different subcultures amongst the different states. You don't want to say something that's good for Californians is going to be good for Wyoming or Tennessee or Seattle. So I think that reduction of large government is a good point. But there's tons of different reasons why I voted for him. But wanted to let you jump in.
A few things here. I would push back on the idea that we're getting quote unquote ripped off, and also like that these are reciprocal, or like trying to get us to like negotiate for the benefit of the American people. One, because Trump just recently reduced tariffs on Switzerland because they gave him a Rolex clock and a gold bar.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily sure. Obviously, there are things that are going on behind closed doors. I think the media does a good job of painting certain things in a certain light to produce a certain narrative. He may have gotten those things, but there perhaps is a different trade going on in the background that we're not necessarily let in the loop in yet, which is more than likely what is happening.
Okay, so there's just like some magical possible explanation, or I
don't necessarily think.
Does at least seem to be that he's accepting a bribe?
I don't necessarily think so. I mean, they're more than likely, as you know, in politics, there are things that go on behind closed doors, and just because the optic is going to be that way, it doesn't necessarily mean that is the truth. Things obviously take time within government.
What did we get out of reducing the tariffs?
What I'm saying is I don't know this topic off the top of my head in terms of that specific instance with Switzerland, but what I'm saying is just take it for face value with the optic of, well, they gave me a gift, so now I'm going to drop the tariff. Obviously, that if that is the case, then that is to be criticized, but I don't necessarily believe that is the case. I think as time goes on, we will find out the inner workings of that.
You're not sure yet because you haven't looked into it yet, so maybe you might refrain from.
Well, no. What I'm saying is we don't have full transparency in government from everything that's going on from a day-to-day basis, right? We usually find things out after the fact or once things have closed. So I'm sure that there is going to be some news of a deal being brokered between that, whether there is some trade compensation. I don't think it would be primarily based off of some kind of trade. But I will be the first one to say that if that is the case, that is a criticism that I would have with someone doing that. I wouldn't sit here and say, that's okay because it's him. Absolutely, we'll call balls and strikes.
Okay. So, and that would indicate that he would not be negotiating for the American people, but instead negotiating for bribery from some.
If that was the case, then yeah, but more than likely with a trade like that, there's obviously going to be news of something coming in the back end.
Yeah. Okay. So I also wanted to address other claims that you made. So in terms of the bringing back manufacturing, since Trump's got in office, we've actually seen a decline in real domestic manufacturing investment within the country. Because when we place universal tariffs, not just targeted ones, it causes there to be an increase in the cost of domestic manufacturing within the country, because many of the aspects of the production process come from countries around the world. And that so it causes inflationary pressure, and we haven't. Seen
I think becoming more reliant, also with just how our governmental system is set up, to where we fluctuate between parties every 4 to 8 years. If I was a business owner and I had products being made overseas for cheap with cheap labor and the raw materials being cheaper overseas as well, I would pass the tariff on to the people and blame a political entity if that gave me more money. However, personally, I wouldn't do that. But I'm just playing the devil's advocate in the sense of that's what their thought process is. However, initial costs are going to be increased, correct? However, once we become more reliant and self-reliant on things, we would be able to drop those costs and be more reliant versus having these raw materials be super cheap overseas.
I don't see any evidence that it would get us to drop those costs, because it reduces innovation. Because now we're not competing with the globe; we're just competing in the American market to a greater extent. So
Well, no,
that
that would be
reduces
that.
competition and reduces innovation. So if your idea is that competition is specifically going to drive innovation, well, if we reduce competition here, well, then wouldn't we reduce innovation?
I don't necessarily believe so. I think what we're also talking about is two
What?
different things, right? Where you're saying that if we were to bring manufacturing back into the United States, we're now only competing within ourselves. We can still be exporting
Wait,
goods
can
and
I tell you
competing
something?
on that level.
Did you know that there was a massive increase in domestic manufacturing investment under the Biden-Harris administration because of the policies that they engaged in? So why don't you take Biden's approach rather than Trump's approach? Because
Yeah,
clearly it
I don't
seems that Biden's approach is
necessarily.
better.
It may have appeared better short term, but what I think is taking a bunch of tax funds and reallocating it that way to try to boost that isn't necessarily the right way to go. However, I think that
That
you know,
alongside targeted tariffs, yeah, that's the best way to do it, is to ensure that
well,
we have a increase in domestic manufacturing investment.
the whole idea behind the tariffs is to obviously is to move manufacturing back to the United States by not having to have all increasing costs by bringing goods in. And we're seeing some car manufacturers, for example, start developing factories within the United States versus importing from Mexico. There's
Okay, so
because
then
of the
we don't see that in terms of domestic manufacturing investment, though. That's what I'm telling you. We would see it there if that was true.
no with the investment. What I'm trying to get at with the investment component is if you're a business owner and you see that Republicans with Trump specifically have a 3-year left political power within the executive office, you might hold out for those 3 years hoping that someone else in a Democrat were to get in to reverse those policies and those tariffs to then keep manufacturing out. If there was a foreseen future of say 20 to 50 years of these tariffs existing, it would cost more money over time to keep importing versus moving labor and manufacturing into the U.S.
So you're saying it might slightly bring some companies to the American markets in domestic markets, but what you're not understanding is that it reduces the level that we'd be trading with countries around the world because they're going to place tariffs back on us in terms of retaliation. Think about it this way. Donald Trump wants to retaliate to negotiate. Isn't that the exact same thing that other countries would think about, specifically whenever we
They might
impose a tariff?
absolutely do that.
Which is
They
exactly
might
what has
absolutely do
happened
that.
historically, which then destroys our industries and exports, sending that to other countries around the world. Right, and
Not
we're paying more in terms
necessarily.
of consumers, and it's a regressive negative impact because people who are lower and middle income, they spend a greater proportion of their income on consumer products. So if you're increasing the cost of consumer products, that will disproportionately negatively impact lower and middle income individuals who previously aren't being taxed, right, to the same degree. So it's actually an increase in taxes for lower and middle income individuals, and then you're replacing that the income tax
With the
again, a
tariffs?
reduction in income tax. Income tax is progressive, meaning that people who are higher income, they spend a greater proportion of their income. So what you're doing is you're replacing a progressive tax structure with an regressive tax structure of tariffs, because you're trying
So
to
you
shift the burden.
so if I just want to understand your point. You're saying because of the tariffs, we are now imposing a tax on the middle class and lower class
To a greater extent, disproportionately, yeah.
to an extent because of the companies, not because of the tariffs themselves. The tariffs themselves is a cost
And this is how
to
the companies respond to
import.
the tariffs.
But the companies are responding in this way because they're
Yes,
trying to profit as much as possible. Where if
exactly. Like, I'm sorry,
no,
that's how capitalism works. Every
I
company has
understand.
a profit maximizing condition. You know
Of
this.
course, the main goal of a company is to maximize profits. What I'm saying though, as a collective, as people, we have the power collectively. If all of us didn't buy from Amazon one day because we wanted to drive prices down for Prime memberships, we have that power collectively. But because we are so disenfranchised with this idea that we're just going to take it and have to eat this cost, then of course the argument comes, well, now we're increasing cost of living for all these people
So,
based
so
on
why
these
do you want to
tariffs.
reduce competition for those American firms that are large?
I don't think
Because
bringing
it
in
would cost
manufacturing.
more for like these small companies to do that in the context of America. So it's just going to decrease the level of competition, and it's going to give them
I
more
don't.
power to exploit that level of market share.
I don't see bringing back manufacturing to the United States as what you're saying in terms of driving down competition because of foreign trade with people accepting our our goods and then putting tariffs on that. I think the whole idea is to bring back jobs and bring back products within the U.S. to become more sustainable versus to have to rely on foreign countries and their labor and their raw materials and then importing them. So if we can become more reliant on our own and our own goods and our own people and our own services.
Why do we need to do that in terms of why do we need to do that? I just don't understand. Why would
No,
we reduce our overall trading capacity on a global stage and the level of competition that our businesses have to do that? It makes no sense. I don't understand what your reasoning is there.
How are we dropping our competition and decreasing our trade by bringing things home? We're cutting the costs of our goods.
Because you're reducing the level of trade that we're going to have with countries around the world.
Well, no, that's on the assumption that because we're not
don't you think that if you have a restriction in the market, that's going to impose like a reduction in the level of trade?
I don't believe that moving manufacturing back to the United States would not allow us to have a good trade with foreign countries.
You're assuming that this manufacturing is going to come back specifically because of only this tariffs, which we have not seen yet. We genuinely have not
no.
seen
The tariffs, and we can discuss other topics. I know you're not feeling super well, but specifically on the tariffs, I think that with what we're doing to bring back manufacturing jobs and to try to incentivize companies to be building within our border and with our country.
How are the jobs reports doing? We see increasing unemployment.
Well, you also have to take in consideration there are a lot of other variables as well, where you have a lot of, as you pointed out earlier, a company's main goal is to maximize profits, and with new technology and AI and things like that,
so
people are going
it more.
I don't think it deregulates it.
Well, Trump wants to deregulate it more.
With what policy or with what has he said in regard to that?
They don't specify, but that's what he wants to do.
But how can you make that assumption if there's been no proposed policy?
Oh my God, that's because he literally has been saying that he wants to do this, but he doesn't have a proposed policy. Like, think about
no,
it this
I mean,
way.
people
That's like
can say they want certain. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, he said you're saying he could say he wants it, but he doesn't actually want to do it. So why would he say it when he's president?
I think there's certain tactics, right, where because of how media and how things are perceived, as well as the consensus or the sentiment of people within the country, I think that you can say one thing to try to stir up or create an issue, which may have been the case that way, but until there is proposed policy to deregulate and do those things, then I would have the conversation in terms of actual factual policies being implemented.
Okay, no, but does that not at least identify what his proposed position is on it comparative to like the other position what it would be from Democrats who would want to regulate?
I mean, with how China is excelling in the AI market with and trying to be competitive in that component, I think there is some type of freedom that needs to be let loose. However, there is going to be contradictions or problems by doing that. But how else would you recommend being competitive?
We need environmental restrictions to ensure that people aren't negatively impacted. You can have innovation, you can invest in innovation without it negatively disenfranchising people because we can impose regulations.
I mean, totally understandable. I think the way they're going about it right now with AI and everything, you have to be somewhat fast and loose, but also too, we're kind of set up behind the eight ball with AI, with how our electrical grid and everything's kind of been structured anyway. So you kind of have to fight and choose your battles with how we can advance and try to be competitive in that market. So, there's a lot of different ways to kind of look at that or approach it. So, but yeah, there's other reasons besides the tariffs that I voted for Trump, if you wanted to get into those.
Well, there's a few things here. Tariffs, again, you didn't address the idea that it's shifting the burden of taxation from a progressive tax structure to a regressive tax structure. Do you at least agree that?
But it's not a tax. It's not a tax. It's not a tax on the American people.
Yes,
it's a tax on trade on imported goods. It should have no
increase in the prices for American people. So inevitably, who's paying that tax?
Totally understandable. However, you don't have to buy these goods if the prices aren't for you, right? In the sense that there are a lot of...
Because what other options do you have? If it increases the cost of products in the market, what other options?
What I'm saying is you can find alternatives.
In the market. or
You can find alternative goods just because a product that you use on a day-to-day basis goes up.
which you could have done otherwise, right? Why? So when you impose a tariff, it reduces the level of alternative goods. Did you know
Unless there's a good being manufactured within the United States that can then
which
compete
that could have
against
already happened. That could have already happened without the tariff implemented.
Yes, but to
Why
say
is
that
that
the
not happening
company's
right now?
greed of wanting to increase costs because now they're being hit versus moving, right? They're being taxed because they're importing goods versus manufacturing and not having to deal with that tax or with that, with that tariff. So the whole idea to say that
Which
we are
reduces
taxing
options
and
increases prices. That's my point.
But the options are to manufacture within the United States. So if an American-made company were to compete with these companies that are increasing prices, people would then switch to that new product.
So you're
This
saying,
idea that
yeah, they'll switch to, but they could have already switched that product right now. I don't understand how a tariff being implemented would make it cheaper. You understand
so
that
the
it would make it more
tariff is
expensive,
going
right?
to
The
tariff is
if it doesn't make it
increasing.
more expensive,
No.
then how would there be an increase in domestic manufacturing investment?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, how would there not be an increase in domestic manufacturing jobs if there wasn't an increase in prices?
I just don't believe. Obviously, there is a barrier to entry with costs for starting up a company within the United States and certain different goods. However, this idea that tariffed goods and the companies passing along that cost to the consumer, that's not, even though it is indirectly affecting them, doesn't mean that as citizens that we have to buy that tariff good. We can find alternatives that are at a cheaper cost. And I totally understand what your argument is.
Listen, it's reducing the alternatives. If you reduce the level of goods in the market because you're reducing the level of imported goods, that increases the price. A reduction in supply with the same level of demand, what happens to the price?
But you can make that back up by manufacturing more within the country.
But that takes time to happen. Okay.
No, 100%. What I'm saying is there is a short-term increase in costs. And by the way,
if it were cheaper to produce that good in the United States, it would have already been happening. So we know
I don't necessarily
that
think
not
so.
only is it more expensive. Yes, that is true.
Well,
That's
in
how
the
a
sense
market
that
works. That's how the free market works. If it were cheaper to produce in the United States at the same level of quality, they'd be doing that because that.
No,
that
I
would
understand
give
that.
them more
What I'm
profit.
saying. What I'm saying, though, is if labor over in China is 10 cents an hour versus in America where we want to have a livable wage at, say, $16, $17 an hour, then why, if the
minimum wage is here?
Well, sorry, I'm just, that was based off previous. However, what I'm saying is if the raw materials in both countries are the same, right, we're able to get those same materials at the same cost. A country that is making them foreignly with cheaper labor, of course they're going to want to do it foreignly because the cost of labor is cheaper and they can maximize profits versus paying an American to do the same thing.
Okay.
So what would we need? Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, what you're not understanding is that if your idea is that you want to reduce the likelihood of there being exploitation in the context of the goods that we're getting, well, then you can place tariffs on the specific goods that are coming from areas in which have that particular exploitation. But that's not what's happening. That's not what we're doing. We're literally placing tariffs on every country around the world. What are you talking about? That's not what the plan is here. So when you're doing that, actually what you're doing is you're causing an incentive for these areas to actually reduce labor standards so they can still try to compete in the market with the higher cost of trade.
But what we're saying is because the argument that he's doing these giant blanket tariffs versus going in and doing specific ones to target these things that we're discussing.
That's what Democrats advocate for, is targeted tariffs.
You ever been with a parent when you were a child and wanting to buy something and you over-exaggerate the price to then undersell and then be like, well, actually, it's not $1,000, it's $300 to make it look more appealing? That's what's going on with these tariffs, of making them look exaggerated to foreign countries to bring them to the table to then renegotiate. If you come out with what you want at the beginning...
we haven't really got anything in terms of renegotiation, and you're still imposing a greater tariff than existed prior.
we need to be recouping some of those funds that we are, from the companies internally that we're exporting or that we're importing from other countries.
Wait, say that again?
We still need to be recouping some of the funds. So although there is now a new tariff, there is a new deal going on. We need to be positioning ourselves in foreign trade to be in a better position than we currently were before Trump.
Yeah, so I don't think that the tariffs put us in a better position, and I'm confused how you gave us an argument that it does put us in a better position, because there haven't been any trade deals I would say have led to better conditions in terms of trade that you'd be able to point to, and still the fact that there'd be tariffs imposed would reduce the level of trade. And then if it's for renegotiation, then how are you going to bring back domestic manufacturing to the country? So it seems like the goal is not bringing back domestic manufacturing if you're advocating that they are just for renegotiation.
I think it can be twofold in the sense that the immediate large tariff is trying to incentivize or create the demand to want to move companies that have the agility to move back as quick as possible to move back.
But if it changes around and doesn't stay where it is, then how is that going to affect expectations in a positive manner?
I still think there's going to be an increase in imported goods, so it would be, looking at the bottom line and then see
an increase in imported goods if we're going to impose a tariff.
Yeah, if we're importing,
that's incoherent. To say that you're going to tax imported goods, but then there's going to be an increase in the level of imported goods is insane.
No, we wouldn't be increasing our imported goods. We would be increasing our exported goods because then we're making more. So we would also
because the countries around the world placed retaliatory tariffs on us, therefore reducing our exports. There's no evidence that we're increasing exports because of the imposition of tariffs. That's ridiculous.
They're placing the tariffs directly back onto us based on the premise of these exaggerated tariffs. But then we go back and then have a discussion that then comes to a trade agreement that benefits both countries.
But you understand that there's still the tax imposed, and it's not going to benefit us overall comparative to what it would have been otherwise, because we could have an increased level of trade if there wasn't an imposition of tariffs in the first place. And also, you still have your Bluetooth on.
Sorry about the quality. I think I just had clicked the shortcut. Uh-huh. Sorry about that. Yeah, I mean, we're more than likely not going to agree on the tariffs, which is totally fine. But there are other reasons that I voted for him as well.
Okay. What makes you think that?
Yeah, a big component was immigration, with decreasing the amount of illegal immigrants or undocumented. I know the left likes to use that, but crossing illegally, I think is not right. And the fact that we need to know who is in our country. I don't necessarily agree with the optic that is going on right now with the raids. However, kicking out or removing illegal aliens would be the best plan.
Okay. So I don't think that the mass deportation process that Trump's engaged in is good. My particular position on immigration is that if someone's in the country undocumented, they have not committed a violent crime or bad crime, they should be given a pathway to citizenship if they haven't, again, committed a violent crime or bad crime, where they don't have to leave the country. I think that would incentivize a better system where we're actually focused on like the safety and security rather than being focused on deporting people who are just like family members, like working to like benefit their communities. So I don't really see a reason to like restrict, those that have not committed violent crimes or bad crimes from being in the country.
Yeah, I think the amnesty route out of the gate creates that incentive of like the slap on the wrist, but still getting away with the behavior. I think for non-violent,
for a convicted criminal, right? You voted for a convicted felon who didn't get held accountable and put in prison because of the fact that he literally was elected president. And then he also violates the law when deporting people because he's violating people's due process rights to a greater extent. And he's constantly on multiple different occasions violated the law.
There was a lot to unpack from that. So I'm not sure necessarily which one you would like me to go down, but with the convicted felon component, within New York state law that what he was convicted of would be misdemeanors, and they were chalked up.
Nope, it's a
Okay.
felony. Not only is it a felony because of the predicate crime, but even if it were a misdemeanor, that's then comparative to an undocumented immigrant who came into the country unlawfully, because that's a misdemeanor.
Well, now you're comparing apples to oranges with committing a misdemeanor versus entering illegally.
That's a
They may
misdemeanor.
they are perhaps both misdemeanors. However, as a country, we need to know who is in our borders. And what I was going to say earlier before that whole kind of side tangent was, the offering of the ability to be able to rejoin and come back in legally as an option versus just granting amnesty. I don't necessarily believe that is the route to go. I think if you were to be able to offer easier transport out of the country and have it be a little bit nicer than being slammed into a van or however they're doing it currently, that might be a better way. However, just giving amnesty to nonviolent, we need to know who's here and we need to know their background, but also too, the reason that having people come in mass groves from foreign countries is working within the economy and then taking the revenue that they're making from their jobs and then taking it out of the economy and going to foreign countries.
So amnesty includes a vetting process, and it would ensure that the most amount of people are vetted as possible. And ICE detains over 70% of the people that they've detained have literally no prior criminal offenses, right? So
No, that's totally fine, but
the idea that
sorry.
that they should be focused on people who are not a threat to our community, I think is absurd. And they would be able to focus on those that are like the murderers and the rapists and the ones that are actually a threat to our community, right? If it is the case that they were to actually what's it called, not not go after people who have not committed violent crimes or bad crimes and give them mass amnesty.
Yeah, I think the violent criminals, obviously you get rid of them and deport them. The non-violent and non-criminal, even though committing the illegal crossing is the misdemeanor, sorry. I think allowing them to be able to be on the list for citizenship after the fact versus just giving them, outright amnesty, then you're going to incentivize, well, if I come here and I'm not a violent criminal, I'm just going to get amnesty eventually, which then incentivizes these crossings at a higher rate.
It's still a vetting process that you go through, right? A legal process, and I want to make that legal process quicker. So how about we take the money that they're investing into militarizing ICE, and let's put that money into literally making this country a safer place and a better place for everyone, including immigrants, by making there a faster and quicker legal immigration process.
So then here's a question for you, because I don't think I've seen you, discuss this in previous media forums. Why do we need this large amount of immigration for the country, in your opinion?
Well, it's not necessarily that we're saying that we need it, but we're saying that this is the best policy, the most humane policy, alongside the fact that you could, in a certain sense, say that people are immigrating to the country are needed because we have been below replacement rates for fertility rates for the past 50 years, and
which is a whole nother
that are older, that the population is going to be disproportionately older on Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, are in different types of programs that people rely on when they're older, right?
Yeah. No, understandable. Understandable.
Which means that there's going to be less young people who are working, funding the system for people who are older. So if you want specifically to be able to fund, the systems that we've had historically speaking, well, then we should have an immigration process that is quicker, so that there are more young people to be able to, pay for all the older people that need access to the care that we think that they should get access to.
But now what we're doing, because with politics and the country, there's different components that then feed onto each other. So you're going to be using the idea of increasing immigration for a great replacement when we should be incentivizing.
Don't say that. The great replacement is crazy. That's a dog whistle. That's a white supremacist dog whistle.
But you just described, because natural or Americans right now aren't reproducing at a rate to sustain our current population.
I'm saying
we now need to import more people,
more immigration, so that we can help people.
Why not have more kids?
I don't know. Why do you see this as replace? I don't know what you mean.
Because as a
when
society,
you have children, is that replacing?
It's replacing in a way, in the sense that.
Okay, so then that's ridiculous. So then you think that having children is a quote unquote great replacement? That's absurd.
No,
The idea that you're referencing it is in the context of where like a white supremacist are saying white people, that there's a reduction in the amount of white people
no, it has
coming to the
nothing to do with
country,
race.
right? And
I
it's
never
gonna
mentioned
make
race.
the country less than 50%. Well, the Great Replacement, that's what it means. If you didn't mean to say that, well, then I'm just telling you what it does mean, so you probably should refer to it
I
using
appreciate
that,
it. I didn't
because
mean
people,
the
that's what
great
people see it
replacement.
as.
I meant a great replacement in the sense that we are going to be replacing a large amount of
Sure, I
society.
just want to let you
in a
know that
great,
that's like a
I
coined
appreciate it. Yeah,
term.
that's not.
It's like
I'm not talking about white people. What I'm talking about is this idea that Americans, whatever race, should be reproducing at a higher rate than, which then feeds into the immigration thing. And to say that the solution to the lower birthing rates is to import more foreign people. I don't believe that as the solution, because then there are
it's
still
to
taking
allow for more people to come to the country if they want to come here. Yeah, that's why,
if they can come here legally.
Yeah, well,
If they can come here legally,
yeah, I'm saying a
that's
quicker legal
fine.
process. Yeah, I'm saying a quicker legal process. What's wrong with
But
that?
that doesn't just automatically give, and we should not just automatically give amnesty, because then that incentivizes, well, if I'm not a violent criminal and I illegally come over, I'll just be given citizenship, even though there might be a
there's
small
vetting
amount
process.
of background
There's
check.
a vetting process.
So why can't they
yeah.
wait in Mexico while we do that? Why
Okay,
can't we move them back to Mexico or
Why are you
whatever
assuming that
country
only
they
people are coming from Mexico?
Well, okay, that's not what I meant. I was going to explain. With the other countries, including Mexico, having them be in the countries that they immigrated or illegally immigrated from, and then doing the vetting process that way. That would be. I don't see the difference between just giving them that amnesty as a human rights violation. Removing them and allowing them to come back in, because there are other people that are on the list that are doing it the legal way, and that kind of undercuts what they're going through. Although
No, it
there is
doesn't.
a
No, it
way.
doesn't. That's like the age-old argument that we shouldn't provide public education because it is the case that other people had to pay for it privately, right? Other parents had to pay for their kids to have private education throughout their younger years. So it would be unfair to all the people that had to pay for it if we had a public education system, right, that literally made sure that everyone had access to it without having to pay.
I don't see the comparison between free public education and private school versus the illegally crossing amnesty to someone that's in line doing it the legal way. I don't see the comparison.
Making the system better. We acknowledge that our system takes too long right now, and people have come to our country undocumented who should have been able to come to our country through the legal process quickly, but weren't able to because our legal process takes so long. So
then why not attack
It's a fault of our legal immigration process.
So then why not attack the process of immigration versus just giving mass amnesty? Because we need to know who's here.
I think that's a part of the process.
Yeah, I just fundamentally disagree. I think having
Why? What's wrong with someone? Or how does it harm you for someone to be in the country who hasn't committed a violent crime or bad crime, who's undocumented? How does that harm you?
I believe it sends the wrong signals to foreign countries in the sense that you can break, even though it is a misdemeanor, you can break the law and come here and we will give you amnesty, versus saying, hey, if you commit the crime illegally and you're a non-violent criminal and we deport you back, you can still have that ability to come back by going through the proper channels. I don't see how that would be,
we're giving
worse
you a
off.
proper channel for someone who's in the country, and then we're also saying for people who are coming to our country, we're also giving you a quicker channel. So it's quicker for both sides. Why is that an issue? Name one way.
I think
because you're saying if it's just someone unlawfully being in the country, well then if you're referencing that, well Donald Trump literally is violating the law and deporting them without due process, and that's violating constitutionally protected rights. So,
but the constitutional rights are for U.S. citizens.
Why do you only care about undocumented immigrants violating the law, but not your president?
This is just a complete straw man in the sense that I'm not talking about Trump right now. I'm talking about illegal immigration and the logic behind it, right? You're saying that we need to replace our citizens because of the birth rate, and we need to just give amnesty to anyone that's here that's a non-violent criminal. And what I'm saying is
who hasn't committed a violent crime or bad crime?
Pardon?
Who hasn't committed a violent crime or bad crime? Yeah, absolutely. What's wrong with
I
that?
think they're still committing a crime.
So?
That's still...
You're
so if you have two
right
people in front of you... You're on an illegal
app that's just not being enforced by the Trump administration.
If you have two people and one is still committed a misdemeanor...
Wait, listen, you're on an app that's banned.
That has nothing to do with my argument. What I'm saying is
administration, and you're using
that's
it
fine.
right now.
you're making arguments against something that I'm not discussing. What I'm saying is you have one person who is willing to commit a misdemeanor, and you have another person who's foreign who's not willing to do that and go through the legal channels. As a country, I would believe that we would want the person that is coming through legitimately versus someone that thinks that they can break the law to do what they want. By giving illegal immigrants that have committed no violent crimes,
Are you saying it's going to create a
amnesty.
psychological, if you let people off who have committed crimes, it's going to create a psychological effect that people are going to commit more crimes? Is that your point?
No,
Because
that's not
I
what
think
I'm
that
saying.
you'd be doing that to a greater extent with Donald Trump in the position of presidency, especially with the fact that he
Again,
pardoned
I'm
violent rioters and
discussing
beat
the
police officers and
logical
called them
argument.
patriots, and that he called for the execution of literally people in the context of Congress, like Mark Kelly, who literally just said, follow the Constitution and don't follow unlawful orders.
Yeah, I'm not discussing Trump right now. I'm discussing immigration with logic, in the sense that you keep wanting to derail and bring in outside things than what we're discussing.
What do you mean outside things?
What I'm
We are
trying-
talking about Trump. What is the title of the live stream?
No, totally understand, but because we're talking about
Could you read it
immigration,
off
which is
for
the
me?
reason
Can you
why I
I
voted.
would love for you to read it off real quick. What is the title of the live stream?
Just because the title has to deal with Trump and we're talking about a policy in which I voted for him on, bringing in other topics of him to try to defute what I'm saying right now is not going against is not an
Testing
argument
your
against
logic
what
in
I'm
relation
saying.
to other things that Donald Trump has done to see if you still support him, even though he's committed these other things.
I'm not
that violate
talking about the
same very
logic
reasoning
of
that you're saying
Donald
you
Trump.
support.
What I'm talking about is the logic of a policy of not giving amnesty. Because if, for example, if you give amnesty to a nonviolent illegal immigrant and you say, hey, you did it illegally, here's a slap on the wrist, we're going to give you amnesty, we're going to give you citizenship. Don't you believe that that would incentivize others to perform the exact same thing versus
Yeah, so
going
you're
through
saying,
the legal
you're saying it's
channel?
going to create so you're saying letting off someone on committing a crime is going to create a psychological effect where people feel like they can commit more crimes. And I'm just saying the Trump administration and Trump himself does that to a significantly greater extent. Not only has he been convicted of 34 felonies and he got away with that himself because he literally wasn't held accountable in the context of a criminal court and put in prison because he literally was elected president, alongside the fact that he was held civilly liable of sexual abuse yet still got into the position of president. He tried to overturn the 2020 election and sent false slates of electors to the electoral college to cast Trump votes when he didn't win to try to steal the election in 2020, right? And he tried to pressure Mike Pence to do so, and he literally failed.
You're
in doing
bringing
so.
up things that have nothing to do with immigration. That's what I'm saying is that you can't make the argument against what I'm saying because
Wait, listen, I have a million times. I'm saying that he violates the law in so many different ways, and you don't really care.
But that's
about
not what
it.
we're discussing.
And
That's
that
not
is
what we're
going to
discussing.
reinforce those things. Reinforce people committing crimes in those different types of acts. Right? If you're saying that
That's-
committing these actions is going to reinforce a psychological effect of people doing this to a greater extent, well, then Donald Trump calling for the execution of Democrats in Congress is going to reproduce that to a greater extent, correct?
Yeah, I know
Psychologically
nothing
speaking,
about
within
that
the population.
specific-
I can
Yeah,
show you a
this-
video
this-
of Donald Trump literally.
That's totally fine. What I'm saying
the
though
tweets
is
that
this
he
has
literally posted a few
nothing.
days ago.
This has nothing to do
It does.
with the argument that I brought up.
You're saying psychological impact based upon the fact that you're letting someone get away with committing a particular crime. And if you didn't
don't-
believe that this had happened to the extent that you're referencing, well, then you would care about it to a greater extent in reference to Donald Trump. Now you don't care about this in all circumstances. We don't care about this in trespassing, or not trespassing, in the situations in which people, what's it called, jaywalk. If it's not a threat to someone's safety and security and you jaywalk, we don't give a shit. And just because we don't enforce that law doesn't mean that other laws aren't enforced. So you understand that just because you don't enforce a particular law doesn't mean that there's an idea that there's not an enforcement of any laws. It's just that there's not an enforcement of that particular law in that particular manner based upon the fact that people haven't committed violent crimes and bad crimes, which is intentional for those that are in the country that haven't committed violent crimes and bad crimes and are undocumented, so they can go through the legal process so that they don't have to live a life specifically where they're exploited, where they're literally living under or trying to go into the shadows to a greater extent so they don't get deported, so that they aren't identified by authorities. Right? We're giving them an
just
incentive to
don't
identify
see
themselves
how
to
the-
authorities and to go through a vetting process. So under my position, we are not only going to vet more people going to the country through the legal process quicker, but we're also going to vet those that are already in the country undocumented that are currently not vetted.
Yeah, I just think that it sends a weak signal to other people that want to commit this crime or do this act versus deporting them and saying you can go on the list, but then, working together bipartisanly to discuss the immigration policies and how we can improve that if we need to. I just comparing.
Okay, then tell me why you're okay with Donald Trump violating the law and deporting people by not utilizing due process rights when he expanded expedited removal to everyone within the country that's been within the jurisdiction of the country that within the past 2 years, whereas previously it was with everyone within the country that was within 100 miles of a border that was within the country for less than 2 weeks. You understand that's a massive expansion to expedited removal, which disproportionately is going to cause a reduction in the amount of due process rights that people have, right?
Yeah, we're just not going to agree on this, and I don't think
Wait,
bringing
I'm sorry, but that's a
in-
violation of the law that apparently you just don't care about.
No, I don't. So illegal immigrants don't have due process if they're
They
here
do.
illegally.
According to the Constitution, they do.
Under what
The
verbiage?
14th Amendment. It says everyone within the jurisdiction of the country is granted due process.
With the
Every
assumption
person.
of citizenship.
And this has been clarified in the Supreme Court.
All right. Well, I'm just I think being here illegally is you need to be deported. You need to go through the proper channels appropriately.
Okay, then you need to go through the proper channels to deport them. Due process.
Yeah, I don't agree.
So again, so you're assuming that undocumented immigrants need to go through this legal process, but Trump doesn't need to go through the legal process. You're saying he's above the law.
No, they are here illegally. They are not supposed to be here. They need to be removed. They need to be deported and go to where
No,
they
they
can't.
don't. They don't need to be deported. Our country's better if they stay, if they haven't committed a violent crime or bad crime, and they're given a pathway to citizenship.
I get, but we're going to go in a circle again, because the sense that by giving them this mass amnesty, even though they haven't committed a crime or a violent crime,
We've already gone over this. There's so many.
No, exactly.
You just aren't willing to acknowledge all the different ways that the Trump administration reinforces violating the law, and you're not willing to acknowledge that. Someone from your own side could be like, every single time Trump violates the law in terms of any constitutional basis, that literally creates a precedence where literally the left could do it, and then that could literally lead to us getting our ideology passed to a significantly greater extent. So someone from your own side could reductio your own position and show you the absurdities of allowing for Donald Trump to violate the constitutionally protected rights that Americans have to a greater extent and literally not abide by what the Supreme Court says and to violate Supreme Court orders, because the same very thing could set precedents for the ideological opposing views of yours to do the exact same thing when it comes to us getting into office the next time.
all right. Yeah, I don't. Making the conflation with Trump and his supposed breaking of these crimes. I just don't get it.
What's confusing?
Yeah, the idea that by picking up illegal immigrants and driving them and putting them outside of our border is violating due process when they don't have due process to begin with, even though you say the 14th Amendment. Yeah, I don't.
You just didn't read the Constitution.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah, I'm being serious. If you read the Constitution, it says anyone within the country has due process. How do you identify that someone's committed a crime if you don't give them due process for committing that crime?
The crime is they're not a U.S. citizen. They're not here legally.
Do tourists get due process if they commit a crime? Because they're not a U.S. citizen.
Say that again.
Do tourists get due process? When they commit a crime, do they get due process? They're not citizens.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point. It's in the sense that I guess it would just depend on the crime, right? If they're here illegally.
What do you mean depend on the crime? So, at least in some circumstances, you would say that non-citizens should be able to get access to due process. So constitutionally, you at least acknowledge that to some extent. But if you actually read the 14th Amendment, you would know that it literally established that, not only the 14th, but the 5th.
Yeah, I just think That's, I don't have anything else to say.
If you don't need to give due process rights to undocumented immigrants, couldn't you just claim someone's undocumented and not give them due process and just deport them?
No, because they would obviously be evidence that they're a citizen or they were documented.
But you don't go through that to check that if you don't go through due process.
So then, how do they know these people are illegal?
It's based upon their
immigrants?
own determinations and judgments, without going.
And they're not comparing this to a master list.
I could make a judgment where I just deport, Elon Musk, or I deport Donald Trump. Send him to Mars.
Yeah, the argument, they're still, even though they're not
That was a joke, by the way.
No, totally understand. It was a good impression. With the due process, right? They're checking if they are documented immigrants. They're not just grabbing anyone and throwing them in a van and driving them across the border.
Okay. You understand that there is a violation of due process rights because they're not going to the context court systems, and they absolutely are just kidnapping people. They absolutely are violating people's rights in terms of access to, literally, you have to provide a warrant, identification, right? You have to understand that literally they are kidnapping people and they are throwing them out of the country. Their loved ones can't identify where they are not getting actually legitimate determinations on where they are. There's backlogged information for that, so it's actually they have no clue where they are. So they're literally missing because their loved ones can't identify where they are. And their due process rights are being violated. So come on. Understand that this is actively harming many people, and because it specifically hasn't impacted you, right? It shouldn't mean that you can't acknowledge that it has impacted other people and that you care that it has. Because actively speaking, these are violations of the law that you're just completely and totally overlooking that have a negative impact on the safety and security of people within this country. Okay? People are they feel less safe. They are less safe in this country because of ICE. Because of the border enforcement that Donald Trump's engaged in. Because of the lack of due process rights. Because of the racial profiling.
But they are checking if they're a citizen or not. They're not just randomly grabbing people that fit a certain criteria.
That doesn't mean that you can't be detained. That doesn't mean that you can't be detained if you're a U.S. citizen. U.S. citizens have been detained.
Okay.
Without due process. You know that, right? And also there have been
They've been detained without due process.
Yes. There was an
explicit
circumstance where someone was going to work and they literally were trying to drive their car to work, and they literally the cops went all around them and they literally limited them and they took them to prison, and they didn't even get access to an attorney for 3 days, right? And they missed their kid's birthday. Right, I watched it. I was on Jubilee recently, and they showed us a specific video of this happening. Right, and within 3 days, they should be able to have identified that they were just trying to go to work and they were here legally. It's absurd. That is insane.
But you're saying that they're not given the due process.
You can't sit there and tell me that that's justified. It is so absurd.
If I fit the suspect or demographic of a murderer and I'm detained, and the process goes and it is determined that I am not that person, that just is the matter of fact.
But
being upset that I
missed.
This
isn't insane. This isn't just being detained. This is him being held, or them being held for 3 days, right, without power of attorney. And people are being racially profiled. So just because of their race, right, they're literally being detained. That wouldn't have happened otherwise. Okay, you understand that?
So then, question
that's
for
not okay, right? You should not be able to just be okay. You shouldn't just that's absurd.
So, question for you. If the process of deporting the illegal immigrants was different than it is currently right now, then you would be in favor
I still disagree with that, right? Because I don't want to deport those that haven't committed violent crimes or bad crimes, but I would prefer that they get due process to them not getting due process. And them getting due process is a constitutionally protected right that they have. And it's important that we protect those constitutionally protected rights, such as due process, as these are fucking important and inherent. And if you commit a crime, you would want due process yourself. If you were to
100%.
randomly be a person within the context of our society, you'd want due process for any crime that you are accused of committing.
Well, and to my understanding, because of the volume of people that they are deporting, that's why you're getting this lead time of 3 days of detainment, where they are getting that due process in the sense that they are validating based off of who we have on record coming in, if they are here legally or illegally. It's not that they're just then going to court and having to fight and do all these different things. The due process is the ability to prove that they're here legally. So the fact that they're being detained and then immigration is then checking to see if they are a citizen or not and then deporting them is the due process.
Okay, you're not understanding. It's what they're accused of and what the administration has judged or determined that to be the case. So I could make a claim if I'm the administration that like anyone I want is in the country undocumented and I can just deport them, right?
How?
Because you had no due process, and it's just based on the judgment of
The
the
due process
administration.
is them checking your papers
Because
to see
it's
if you're on
it's
record.
literally just the executive branch making the determination through the context of ICE that they think that this is applicable to them. It is not a determination that is verified by another branch of government like the court system. What you're not understanding is that you are bypassing the checks and balances.
They have to go to court to prove that they are not.
Yes, you do. You have to verify this.
And they're not. You're saying that they're not verifying them while they're detaining them.
It's not verified. Yeah, it's not verified. It's only just a Trump administration judgment or determination. Otherwise, it would be determined by another branch of government, the court process in this context.
Why do we need to be wasting taxpayer dollars if we have birth certificates, we have all the records to prove that you're a citizen?
So are you essentially asking why should we have checks and balances in multiple branches of government, and why should we have a process that funds multiple branches of government? Is that seriously the question you're asking me?
No, what I'm saying is why do we have to then go through this circus of parading people that we know are here illegally and having to waste
because that's a process of ensuring that we have checks and balances and that the Constitution is upheld because we're upholding the supreme law of the land, the Constitution.
I don't see how going to court to then prove something that government has, and then you're going to make the argument that well, the government
the
can
claims
fake facts
and the judgments from the executive branch.
Yeah, if you're here legally and you don't have your documentation to show that you're here legally, the due process is confirming and being detained and confirming that you have citizenship or the right to be here. And if you don't belong here. You don't.
Wait, so if you just don't have your papers on you, are you saying that you'd be okay with them being deported?
Is that what I said?
Well, I'm just asking.
There are ways of identifying yourself. You have your passport, you have your stuff to be able to identify you if you're here legally.
What if you don't have it? What if you lost your passport?
And you have record of you requesting your passport back. You have to have. It's a.
What if that happened? Let's assume a scenario where it happened recently and you haven't requested it yet. What if it just happened and then this happens and then you don't have it on you and you haven't requested it yet?
And we're talking about passports to then concur with your visa being here legally.
Yeah, let's say you don't have any method of identification on you. You cannot find any of your method of identification. Would you be okay with them being deported?
Your country, because other countries have ways of identifying you. They go through the channels to then confirm. They pull up the evidence and they say, okay, you are here. You misplaced your. It's not a just you don't have a document. Okay, bye, see ya, bye. It's not how it is. That's just not how it's.
So, and you don't think there's any circumstance where someone could have lost all the papers, maybe in a flood or a fire, or they don't have any specific papers, and they lost everything, and they don't have any of their papers for methods of identification. And say if they lost that, listen, if they lost that, what would they be able to do under your perspective to be able to justify that?
Right. So
if it's from a judgment from the Trump administration, not a judgment from the court system. I would say that the database in the system that we would require to verify that would rely upon us verifying that from a judicial perspective. Otherwise, right, there clearly could be enough of a basis for them to try to deport people who we think would have a legal basis in the country.
What I'm saying is, someone's here, they have all their papers, it falls into the Grand Canyon because they're a tourist. They get picked up by ICE. They have the ability to go through visas and obtain your identification from your foreign country and get all this information.
It takes long. The process takes really long. The same reason that you said that we shouldn't have to go through the court system, that it would cost too much and that it would take too long, are the exact reasons why people come to the country undocumented. So the very reasons that you use to justify your position in terms of deporting people without due process is actually a justification for undocumented immigrants to come to this country, so long as that they're not a threat to our safety and security.
I didn't say that we don't need to work on creating a better system for creating citizens from people that are applying legally. That's not what I said. I just said that if you're here illegally, you haven't committed a nonviolent crime, you will be deported, and then have the ability to then re-register to get on the list to get citizenship. It's not a permanent ban. You're being removed from the country, and we're going to have you do it the legal way. Because if you come here the illegal way, and we do a slap on the wrist, and then we give you citizenship, it then incentivizes other people to say, "Well, I'm not a
Yeah,
violent criminal."
you're just repeating the same talking point. Even though like we could point to like examples of Donald Trump doing so, like pardoning January 6th violent rioters who beat police officers.
Completely different topics than what we're discussing.
Completely different topics. You aren't even willing to address it.
I'm
You have to.
totally
We're making a compared analysis of what side you would want to support, right?
I'm discussing the logic of my argument of why illegal immigrants need to be deported. And what you're then doing is saying, well, it's going to create the.
I'm testing your logic, and I'm saying you, based upon your own reasoning, don't give a shit about this. But apparently, that doesn't matter to you.
Followers are going to do crimes. It's not what I'm. It's not even comparative to what I'm making the argument on. If you want to discuss January 6th and his, upcharged from misdemeanor to felony to then create this stigma around election time of, oh, you're electing a felon, we can have those discussions. But that has no bearing on saying the logic of giving a green light to people that are committing crimes will not incentivize
That's what
other
pardoning
people.
is. That's what pardoning is.
January 6th doesn't have anything to do with the immigration logic.
But you understand that it's going to incentivize crime to happen in this country to a greater extent, especially violent crime relating to politics?
Say that again?
You understand that it's going to increase the likelihood of violent crime relating to politics based upon the reasoning you provided in terms of because you allow for a crime to get away, that it's going to increase the psychological prevalence of this?
I'm still not following the argument that you're saying.
Okay, all right. I'm going to get off. Is there anything else you want to talk about before I get off?
No, I mean, you were respectful. I totally understand. There's going to be different viewpoints, but I just don't agree with bringing in other instances of other policies and then try to defute my logical claims. So that's cool.
Okay. All right. I appreciate you coming up.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. I'm going to get off for today. I want to say thank you to some people. I just got to catch up a little bit, but yeah, I definitely stayed on longer than I expected. I'm sorry for doing a shorter live today, everyone. I'm very sick. I honestly don't feel great. And it's really hard to speak right now. I'm not gonna lie, having a hard time. Robin, by the way, thank you so much for the $2. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Kennedy, thank you for the $30. I really appreciate it. It's so kind of you. Thank you so much, Kennedy. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Lisa with the $20 for hope you feel better soon. Thank you so much, Lisa. Soul, thank you so much. I really appreciate the $20. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Soul. I really appreciate it. Thank you. That's so kind. Juliana, thank you so much for the $5. Oh, shout out to your friend Grace. Absolutely. Matthew, thank you so much for the $20. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it, Matthew. Lincoln, thank you so much for the $10 and for the $5 as well. Thank you. Jennifer, thank you for the $10. I really appreciate it. Brandy, thank you so much for the $1. Mina, thank you for the $120 on PayPal. Thank you so much, Mina. That is so kind of you. Can we get some W's for Mina in the comment section? They said get well soon. Thank you so much, Mina. I really appreciate it. Thank you. That is so kind of you. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Can we get some W's for Mina in the comment section right now? Thank you so much. Amanda, thank you for the $5. Sarah with the $1 as well. Thank you. Thank you. Let me catch up on YouTube as well, and then I'm going to get off for tonight, everyone. Susan, thank you so much for the $25 on Cash App. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you. If you're on YouTube, I would really appreciate if you hit that thumbs up. I appreciate everyone coming through. Chris, thank you for the $10. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Glampire, thank you for the $5. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I know that there's literally a specific examples. There's so many examples. It's insane. Glampire, thank you for the $5. Thank you. Literally, though, we need a picture book. Erica, thank you for the $10. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. That's true. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. 73 and still liberal. Thank you so much for the $2. Maxley, thank you for the $20. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Garrett, thank you for the 5. And for the 5. Sin, thank you for the 5. Emily, thank you for the 10. Hope, thank you for the 25. Dane, thank you for the 5. Democracy is in Darkness, thank you for the 10. And Rennie, thank you for the 5. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. Malin, thank you so much for the 10 as well. I'm going to get off, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night, everyone. I will see everyone tomorrow. Hopefully. Hope I'm fine. Good night, everyone.